What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Wildcat MTG. We are officially on the doorstep for the pre-release of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and I have to say, in review of the set, there are some cards in the set that I'm very excited about. I think that there are some cards in this set that have an opportunity to be multi-format all-stars, and so today I thought I would go over the top 10 cards that I am most excited for. So when I say most excited for, I don't necessarily mean power level wise. I'm not saying this is my top 10 most powerful. I'm not saying that this is my top 10 most monetarily expensive cards that I expect to come from the set. It's really some combination of the above because me as a player, that's where my excitement comes from. So when I say excitement, I really do mean the cards that that generate excitement for me, cards that I can't wait to play with, collect, or own, or some combination of all of the above. With that being said, let's dive in and take a look at number 10. So coming in at number 10, we've got Boseiju Who Endures. And listen, I'm going to go ahead and get the easy ones out of the way here. Just because I have this card at number 10 doesn't mean I'm not excited for it. But I think that this is a card that a lot of people has already generated a lot of interest. A lot of people have already identified this card as one of the top tier cards from this set, and I can't blame them for it. As a legendary land that enters the battlefield untapped and has this channel ability that can be used in a versatile number of ways, there's no doubt in my mind that this card is going to see a ton of play across lots of formats and probably have a lot of value to it. Obviously, I am excited for the card, but again, I think that this is just one of the easy ones that people have identified, and that's why I have it at number 10. And at number 9, we've got Jin Gitaxias, Progress Tyrant. So very similar to my number 10 pick. It's not that I'm not excited for this card or not as excited, but I think that this is a card that has already been identified as a real difference maker from this set. People have already picked out this card as being a very powerful and probably very expensive card. And looking at the text, I get it, right? Whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, copy that spell, you may choose new targets for the copy. That inherently is a very by itself a very powerful ability, but additionally, whenever an opponent casts an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, counter that spell. This ability triggers only once each turn, so that means your opponent or opponents at minimum are going to have to cast 2 spells per turn just to deal with this card. It has a built-in self-defense mechanism. It is a crazy good card. Can't wait to own it, can't wait to play with it, and with that being said, let's move on to number 8. And so at number 8, we've got Nashi, Moon Sage's Scion. And as somebody who grew up watching reptiles and rodents do martial arts together, I am always going to be a pro rat ninja person. What I enjoy about this card is that it has the ninjutsu mechanic that you can use to sneak it in for combat damage. And once you sneak it in for combat damage, you can exile the top card of each player's library. And until end of turn, you may play one of those cards. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than its mana cost. Often some of these abilities are prohibitive because they require you to have the mana to get the combat damage in and then actually cast the spell, whereas this allows you to use your life as a resource, which I think can be really good and really helpful in helping you get ahead on board. At number 7, we've got Tameshi, Reality Architect. I read this card at first and it seems very, very powerful to me. It reads, whenever one or more non-creature permanents are returned to hand, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. And as a secondary ability for X and a Plains mana, you can return a land you control to its owner's hand, return target artifact or enchantment card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So not only can you use it to generate card advantage by bouncing your opponent's things back to their hand, but simultaneously it also synergizes with your channel lands where you might be able to return a channel land to your hand, allowing you to use its channel ability, but then also use that and pay X mana to return an enchantment or an artifact directly to the battlefield. To me, this card seems like it has a lot of potential to it, and I'm excited to see what somebody with capable deck building hands might be able to do with it. At number 6, we've got Tatsunari Toad Rider, and I did divulge at the beginning of this that this list would not necessarily be comprised of just powerful or valuable cards, and Tatsunari definitely checks the box of the fun aspect of my excitement. And with that in mind, I still think this guy has some pretty cool abilities. So Tatsunari says that whenever you cast an enchantment spell, it checks to see if you have a 3/3 frog buddy named Kimi. And if you do not, you get to create one. What I like about this is a lot of cards like this normally have enter the battlefield, where it enters the battlefield and it creates a token of something or a legendary something. And if it's legendary, then you don't get a secondary copy and you only get it on the enter the battlefield. Whereas every time you cast an enchantment spell with Tatsunari, it's checking to see if you have your 3/3 frog buddy, and if you don't, you get another one. Secondarily, this has an ability where for 1 colorless mana and 1 either blue or green mana, you can make Tatsunari and target frog you control so that it can't be blocked except by creatures with flying or reach. If only there were a frog that were blue and or green that would also benefit from not being able to be blocked as easily. Oh wait, we totally have a friend that is a frog that is both blue and green that would like to not be blocked, and that is Gralnak, our Hypnotoad friend. So combining Gralnak and Tatsunari, we get to hopefully sneak in for some damage. We protect Gralnak from being killed. We trigger his Mills effect. We put croak counters on things, and we make out like a bandit. That seems like a really fun deal, and I really want to see that happen. So let's make it happen, Magic community. At number 5, we've got Weaver of Harmony. And on the surface, this is a 2/2 Grizzly Bear. That's all it is. 2 for a 2/2 Grizzly Bear. It also gives your other enchantment creatures you control +1/+1, and that all seems fine. But it's the other ability that really excites me about this card. For 1 green mana and tap, you can copy target activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source, and you may choose new targets for the copy. It does say you can't use this for mana abilities, but that's not really what I'm keying in on. The fact that you can copy trigger abilities or activated abilities of enchantments seems like it has some really busted potential when you combine this card with, I don't know, let's say +1/+1 counters effects. At number 4, we've got Shigeki Jukai Visionary, and Shigeki is a 2-drop for a 1/3. The first ability is 1 colorless and 1 green mana, and you can tap it and return Shigeki to its owner's hand, revealing the top 4 cards of your library. You can put a land from among them directly onto the battlefield and putting the rest into your graveyard. Shigeki also synergizes with itself in that its second ability is Channel, and for 2x and 2 green, you can discard Shigeki, return target X non-legendary cards from your graveyard to your hand. So it's helping you ramp into a spell, and if you end up binning that spell into your graveyard, you can use it to bounce it back. Essentially, it acts as a green version of Blue's recall spell, which is a very, very powerful effect. And for that reason, I'm actually pretty excited to play with this card. At number 3, we have the granddaddy of all of our meme cards on the list today, and that is Mech Titan Core. And listen, if I can't get you excited about beating face with a 10/10 construct that has flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste, like, I don't even know what we're doing here. We have a term in Magic called Voltron that we use to describe a creature that we're pumping up with all sorts of equipment, but this is like the literal Voltron, or like the Mechazord, if you will. Listen, again, if I can't get you excited about smashing face with a 10/10 construct that has all the abilities known to man on it, I don't even know what we're doing here. I can't wait to build some decks around this card. I don't care if they're competitive. I just want to win some games using the giant Mechazord that is the Mech Titan Core at its core. At number 2, I have Invoke Calamity, and so this is part of a spell cycle. Every color got a different Invoke spell. There's been a lot of chatter around the Black Invoke, which allows the player to potentially get rid of an enchantment and or planeswalker on their opponent's side of the battlefield, which is very powerful. But I specifically have been drawn to this one because it can be played at instant speed. It is the only Invoke card that can be played at instant speed, and it says you may cast up to 2 instant and or sorcery spells with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard and or hand without paying their mana costs. So I've learned a valuable lesson through playing Magic many, many years, and that is free spells are good. And so whether you're using this card to either recycle cards that you may have just cast or ramp your storm count, to me this has some serious potential behind it. It'd be interesting to see how it pairs with Jessica's Will and Commander. I really think that there's some strong possibilities with this card as being an absolute finisher. So that's why it made my list, and I'm kind of excited to be able to tinker around with it. And finally, coming in at number 1, the card that I'm most excited for from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, it is the Wandering Emperor. And I think Planeswalkers can be a little bit tough because I think the hard part for them is that they're either oftentimes completely unplayable or they're so broken that they make formats unfun. And I think that this card kind of meets that middle ground where it can be played, has some genuine utility to it, but it also doesn't bog down the game, doesn't bring it to a grinding halt, doesn't make it unfun. Let's talk about the card a little bit more. So it is 2 colorless and 2 white mana for a 3 loyalty planeswalker. So right off the bat, like if you want to talk about the color white, we're talking about Wrath of God mana, right? So it's not hits the battlefield super early in the game and just takes over. But it also pushes the boundaries of what we've been able to see Planeswalkers to do ability-wise previously, in that it can be flashed into play, and the turn that it is flashed into play, its loyalty abilities can be used to instant speed. So let's talk about the loyalty abilities individually. So for a +1, you can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and it gains first strike until end of turn. For -1 loyalty, you can create a 2/2 white samurai creature with vigilance, or for -2, you can exile target tapped creature and you gain 2 life. So you can flash it into play and almost use it as a combat trick where you take an existing creature and you give it the edge in combat by giving it a +1/+1 and first strike. Or you can use it to create a chump blocker if you need to. You can also use it as sort of like a weapon where you use the 2/2 creature, you bring it into play at the end of your opponent's turn, and then you're using that +1 ability to make it a 3/3 vigilance first strike as an attacking creature, so it has a little bit of tempo to it. And lastly, and I think probably most importantly, in a set that has ninjutsu as a mechanic, where your opponent is hitting you and then flashing in a creature of their own, the ability to exile a creature at instant speed and gain 2 life off it and have them waste the mana and resources they had to in order to do that, I think is absolutely huge. So I really love this card and the potential of it, and I am super pumped to be able to play with it. So that is my top 10 cards from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty that I am most excited for. But I really want to know, what are the cards that you're most excited for? What cards weren't on my list that are on yours? Drop me some comments below and let me know. And if you like this segment, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.